Good evening and welcome to the budget workshop for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. It is 5:30 on April 26th, 2021. We are going to start off with a presentation from Enterprise on the possibility of leasing vehicles for the city. So if y'all would please come up, we can go from there.
I brought these handouts too, if you want me to pass them out for y'all.
Please.
Okay. There you
Thank you.
You can leave one right there.
Thank you.
Oh, bless you.
Good, how are you? Thank you.
Thank you.
Figured it might be easier for y'all to have an individual copy.
Thank you.
My name's Kim Carper. I'm with Enterprise. This is Steve Dulick. Enterprise Fleet Management. So just to give you guys kind of an overview of us, we've been working with Bruce, Kyle, and Phyllis just to compile some data from y'all's fleet of vehicles to put together a comprehensive budget model to look at both short-term and long-term financial impact of moving into a lease program with us for your fleet of vehicles, implementing some of our strategies and resources to ultimately help put money back into the bottom line and streamline the vehicles process. What we do, just kind of like I mentioned for y'all, we've done this for many government entities. We have about 1,300 government partners across the nation and ever expanding, just because it simply makes sense. If we can be a little bit more strategic about how we operate these depreciating assets that are a necessary portion to the city's operation, then why not? So that's kind of where Enterprise has stepped in with our government counterparts to help you all, again, implement these strategies and resources to streamline your budgets and ultimately, again, put money back into the bottom line. What this packet goes through is just an overview of our findings from taking y'all's vehicles information and then going through and implementing the most strategic approach to your vehicles. So replacing them at the best interval for those various vehicle types and their mileage patterns to generate the most financial impact overall. What we ended up finding is after looking at this over the long term, there's about $1.6 million in savings to the city over 10 years by implementing this strategy. The overall packet goes through some of the things that we looked at. So just to highlight a few, I guess, high-level areas of interest. We really targeted the 15% of the light and medium duty fleet that's 10 years and older. Honestly, when we typically look at something like this for our government partners, that number is a lot higher. So you guys are already kind of implementing that strategy of replacing these vehicles at the optimal time. It really was just kind of taking that and moving the needle a little bit further and replacing some of these vehicles a little bit sooner because of the financial impact from the resale value that we're getting in those vehicles. So take, for instance, our half-ton extended cab pickup trucks. When we take a look at those vehicles in particular, if we replace those vehicles every 12 months or so, we're really seeing minimal capital outlay because they are selling for such a good price on the back end with that low mileage pattern that we're experiencing with the city's use. So most of our government entities right now are moving those half-ton extended cab pickup trucks to 12-month cycles because in actuality, we're honestly making money on those vehicles. If you guys, since you guys are a government entity, you're entitled to a very good buy on those vehicles on the front end. You get heavy government discounts. When we go to sell that vehicle for you, we don't have to discount that vehicle just because you all got the government incentive on the front end. So that's where we're seeing a lot of that additional equity in flipping those vehicles every year because we're going to sell it, and oftentimes it's selling for what you paid for that vehicle, if not a higher value. So that's where you'll see a lot of the financial impact come into play when we're looking at that long-term number, is just from replacing those vehicles again at their most strategic point, and those half-ton trucks in particular on a 12-month term.
Yeah, and one of the things that we found is that your fleet today, you're cycling out about 10.2 years on average. Underneath this plan, Kim had mentioned, the light-duty trucks down to a 12-month plan. But on average, we would take your white fleet, your light-duty fleet, and take that replacement cycle down to about a 3 or 4 year period. And that's where Kim's really making the point on taking advantage of the equity that's in those vehicles. The commercial vehicle market is extremely strong, and it has been for years, and we anticipate it to stay that way. You're not taking advantage of that today with the length of time that you're holding onto your vehicles today, and by holding onto your vehicles longer, your operational costs are going up. So your maintenance spend, your fuel costs with loss in fuel degradation. So those are the things that we take a look at as we're making our recommendations from a proper holding period standpoint.
Page 3 lays out that analysis for y'all, if you guys want to take a look at the number side of things and where that 1.6 million number came from. Just to kind of walk you guys through reading that analysis, if you look at the fleet planning analysis portion of page 3, that top highlighted line is our baseline budget. So that's taking the data provided from Bruce, Kyle, and Phyllis on y'all's vehicles fleet as it is today and spend numbers. And then comparing, if we flip that into an enterprise program and took our recommendations on the most strategic approach, how would that compare to our baseline fleet budget? So that top number gives us a purchase budget with our annual average purchase of about 14 vehicles per year. Our average annual maintenance spend, fuel spend, and then totaling that up to give us our average annual fleet budget in total. If you move down to the next line where it says fiscal year 21, so that would be this next year's replacements, we're recommending 47 vehicles to replace in year 1. So that would take your owned fleet down from 143 to 94, and now rolling those into a lease under enterprise of 47, so that now we have a lease units of 47. Instead of a purchase budget, we would have a lease budget. So we see that number there of 344. And then our equity number, so that's the estimated equity that we think we can get for those 47 vehicles. But also, like I mentioned, it's really strategic for us to cycle out our half-ton trucks on a 12-month term. So that's where you see that equity leased, is some of those trucks in that first year would already be cycling out. So that's the estimated equity that we could get on those vehicles. Our maintenance spend, because now we're operating 47 newer vehicles, that number will go down because now they're operating in preventative maintenance world, so essentially oil changes. Fuel costs will naturally go down as well because those newer vehicles are going to be capitalizing on the best fuel miles per gallon that we can get. So then our total fleet budget you see here for year 1 would be just over $472,000. When we compare that to our baseline budget of $921,000, year 1 we would see a net savings of just shy of $450,000. So then what we did was just stretch that out over 10 years with our recommended replacements, continuing the cycle, and then added that net cash column down to get our 10-year savings of $1.6 million.
Okay.
And we do understand that's a lot of numbers to be taking a look at and trying to digest for the first time. So if you guys have any questions, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to walk you through how that was calculated.
Talk to me about 28, if you don't mind. That's where we go for net cash into the negative.
Yes, so that would be when we'd be fully implemented into the program. In that year too, you know, we're looking at just a few less replacements, so that's just a little bit less in terms of equity. Again, yes, we're in the negative that year, but when we look at it on a total, I mean, that's not even, it's maybe half of a vehicle when we look at it, to be in the negative that 1 year. So overall, I mean, when we look at the total savings that year, I would say honestly that negative number, we're just anticipating a couple less vehicles for sale that would cover that number. But overall, when we add it up, it more than covers that 1 year of negative.
It's essentially a breakdown of how many vehicles did we add that year versus how many vehicles did we sell compared to the years prior and the years after, where it gets back on track to a positive number. And again, keep in mind, we're comparing that number to your baseline as of today. That does not account for any increase in your vehicle budget over time. And I believe that's 8 years out-ish.
Right.
So we're not accounting for, any inflation in your current budget today in that specific example.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, not trying to count the chickens for the hatch, but any upfront money?
No, so, the only, I guess, are you meaning like down payment and whatnot? The only, down payment that would come into play on any of these would be really on the vehicles that have heavy aftermarket equipment on them. So mainly your police fleet, that has significant aftermarket equipment installed for the police upfit. What we do is in that scenario, anything that's over $10,000 in aftermarket equipment, that we take 50% of that aftermarket cost. So say it was $10,000 for the upfit, it would be a $5,000 down payment in that scenario on that vehicle.
What about end price, like the turn-in?
No, there's a $400 service charge at the end of the term, and that covers the transfer of title and sale of the vehicle and things like that. But that's the only.
That ain't cover any damage to the vehicle, like scratches or parking lot dents or?
There's
wear and tear?
there's no wear and tear penalties in our setup. The only thing that wear and tear would impact is resale value. It's the same as how it would impact you today if you were to sell that vehicle on your own. We try to take that into consideration though, knowing that these vehicles are gonna come back not in the best of shape. So when we're estimating our resale values, we take that into consideration and try to estimate them on the low end, just to err on the side of caution.
What about service and upkeep?
There's a couple different ways that we could go about that. So like in terms of maintenance, is that, we can roll this into a maintenance program with Enterprise, and that would represent this proposed maintenance cost that's at the top here, that blended average. We can fix and budget that maintenance cost on the new vehicles. In that program, we would utilize local shops. But Enterprise would handle the process in terms of making sure that the right work's being done, the right labor hours, right price, nothing additional is being added on, things like that. And then we track all of that, so it all feeds into our customer dashboard that y'all would have access to, just to give us better statistics to make data-driven decisions when it comes to your vehicles. We can roll into that program, or if y'all wanted to continue utilizing your shop as you are today, you could do that the same way that you're doing it today.
I know when you go buy a new car from a dealer, it comes with a 12-month powertrain warranty. I guess the rental companies has the same deal with the dealers.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong
Yeah.
on that, but the warranty would still apply to these
I didn't know
vehicles,
if
the
it
same
changed on,
manufacturer
I didn't know if
warranty.
they changed with lease vehicles or not.
No, these
Okay.
we're acting as the dealer in this scenario. We're acting as the financing mechanism in this scenario.
Okay.
But all the manufacturer warranties and everything all apply.
So basically what Enterprise is doing is like say, financing. Y'all just gonna be basically the finance company?
Yep.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
And when we provide the tracking and the actual fleet management, the account management team that'll sit down with your team multiple times for a year for fleet planning. A common question we typically get when folks hear the word lease is, okay, are there mileage restrictions? Are there wear and tear penalties? None of those apply in this scenario. So no wear and tear penalties, no mileage restrictions, no early termination penalties. To answer the Alderman's question about the resale and just reiterate it, when we sell these vehicles, the equity in them belongs to the city of Vergne. It's not Enterprise's money. Our job is to go out and sell these vehicles for as much as we possibly can to give you the best return that you can expect.
So 2 questions here. Number one, that dashboard that you mentioned, that's the picture on page 5, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and it doesn't even do it justice. A screenshot is really hard to capture all of the capabilities of that dashboard. But the goal of that dashboard is to provide a tool to y'all to have better tracking over your vehicles. Like I mentioned earlier, these are depreciating assets that we have to sink money into in order to do our jobs. But if we can be more strategic about it, track the information that will help us make data-driven decisions when it comes to those vehicles, then we can ultimately run them at their most cost-effective point and put money back into the bottom line.
Now, y'all's contract, is it a year-to-year contract? Is it a 5-year, 10-year, or how do y'all do that?
It depends on what you guys would approve. The only actual physical contract you have with us is the individual vehicle finances/leases that you enter into. So if it's a scenario where we set it up for 12 months, your obligation to Enterprise is for 12 months on that particular unit. If you have another subset of units that you entered into recommended holding period of 48 months, your obligation to Enterprise will be the 48 months on those specific vehicles.
Okay, and then let's say hypothetically we get to 2026, where at that point we've already sold the vehicles we own, we're fully vested isn't the right word, but
Yeah,
essentially
implemented into the
vested with
program.
you guys, and that board, whatever it looks like, decides that y'all aren't, Enterprise isn't the solution that they want to go going forward.
Yep.
Is there a type of buyout for the vehicles, or how does that work?
Just as if you were to finance the vehicles yourself, there's a remaining principal balance on the vehicles. That's your buyout. So the vehicles could be worth well more than what that number is. The only thing Enterprise cares about recouping is what you still owe us for those vehicles. So your options would be to continue to make payments on those vehicles until you own them outright, or cut a check to Enterprise and we transfer title at that point in time and we cut ties.
Okay. Alderman Coates, do you have any questions?
Back to page 3, just walk us through year 25, 26. There's a big difference in the numbers there. Just walk us through that if you would, please.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
25 and 26, just walk us through the net cash difference between 25 and 26 years.
Yep, so in 25, we're looking at replacing 76 units in that year. Again, that's some of those vehicles, new vehicles being cycled out every year to 2 years at that point, plus our recommended replacements for the remaining units that we haven't replaced. So that's why we're seeing still an equity in the owned column and an equity in the leased column, because we're replacing those remaining owned units plus the new units that we would recommend to replace at that optimal period. So that's why we see such a high net savings there. We've already replaced all of the owned units in year 26. So those 68 units are the ones that have already been done with Enterprise, and we're already recommending that's the year to swap them out. So we're only experiencing the equity from those units and not equity from the remaining owned units and new units with Enterprise. And that's why you see a drastic difference in the net cash.
Now, you did say there's no limit as far as the miles per vehicle per year?
No limitation.
No limitation.
No, we try to estimate the mileage on those vehicles as close as possible, though, so that we can get accurate equity values for y'all when we estimate what we think that vehicle will be worth on the back end. And that just helps us better determine when's the optimal time to replace. Now, y'all would be assigned an account manager that would be continuously monitoring your vehicles and that optimal time to replace every year. We look to meet with our folks 2 to 3 times per year to go over our findings and make sure that we're on track with what we predicted. And if there's any adjustments that we need to make, say, for instance, we're noticing that a couple of vehicles, it would be more optimal for us to hold on to them longer, then we would make those adjustments at that time so that we're continuously operating your fleet at its most cost-effective point.
And the last question is, can you supply the vehicles? Obviously, we're hearing on the news, there's been an issue of getting vehicles. Is that something that you can give us that guarantee?
It is, we're still experiencing that the same way. The benefit of having us in your back pocket is we have an extensive buy network. I mean, we have dealers across the nation that we can tap into, whereas most folks are limited to what's in the local area. So you're able to leverage us for that. Also, we are able to go directly to the manufacturer on your behalf, and that's our preferred method because that way we're ordering these vehicles with exactly what you need at the best and lowest possible cost. So that's where we would go preferably. But your account manager, again, is there to help you proactively plan so that we're ordering these vehicles so that we're not stuck in a pickle when something like this happens where the vehicle inventory is super limited. We're able to, again, like I mentioned, tap into our buying network. So we've been able to alleviate a lot of those issues for our current clients. But yes, it's still a deal that we're experiencing too. Anything that we're ordering, we're seeing significantly longer lead times on those vehicles being produced. We just try to kind of do a dual system here where we can get out of dealer stock what's immediately needed, but order everything that we possibly can, just again to curb those issues and make it the most cost-effective option as possible.
And the further we get into the program, the more proactive planning we've been able to do for you. So the majority of the vehicles that we'll acquire, we'll suggest going direct to the manufacturer to get them. We'll know what the lead times are. We'll know that they'll be built. And factory ordering direct from the manufacturer is the lowest cost way of acquiring a vehicle. That's what's ideal in most scenarios, and that's what we're doing for the majority of our clients is dealing direct with the manufacturer on their behalf.
So what's your typical lead time right now?
For like half-ton and three-quarter-ton trucks, we're looking at 24 to 26 weeks. I've seen that go up as well. For some of our other vehicles, it really kind of depends, and you got to take into consideration upfit and things like that too, if there's anything that has aftermarket equipment on it. But I'd say 24 to 26 weeks would be a good average across the board, just on lead times. But the longer that we wait, I feel like the more that lead time is going to extend out.
Okay. Do y'all do the decaling, or do we still contract with whatever group we do, whether it's police, fire, or even just regular municipal officers decaling the vehicles?
It's how you guys want to do that. You can continue to have them decaled how you're doing it today, or if you want us to help coordinate that process, we can coordinate it. It's just a straight pass-through cost, so whatever it costs you today, we would just charge that same cost, but help at least coordinate that. So it's up to y'all, whatever you would like. If you like your process today, you can keep doing that. If not, if you want the additional assistance of coordination, then we can step in and help with that.
Okay. Bruce, you've been here longer than any of us. What are your thoughts on this for the city?
You know, just from my standpoint, of course, I've had a few meetings with these folks, and you know, I think there's pros and cons, as there is with anything that we get into. We have always talked about getting into a program where we rotate vehicles on a regular basis. Especially our biggest concerns in the past have been with the police department because of the emergency services standpoint and needing to have, you know, reliable vehicles. Obviously, back in 2013, we were in a desperate situation for vehicles at that point. We had to buy, it was like 20-something police vehicles at that point, which obviously was a huge hit on our budget. But if we're automatically putting it in the budget each year to rotate a set number of vehicles in and out, I think that's a great thing. And not just for police, but for all departments as well. Some cons, obviously, there's some uncertainties because we've never done a program like this before. I have reached out to Rutherford County, Steve Sandlin, to get some thoughts from him because they have been participating in this for a year or two, I think. And I've not heard back from him yet, but I will try to follow up. So, you know, obviously the department heads that are here tonight, they've not heard any of this presentation before, so I don't know what their thoughts are. Garland is obviously over our fleet department, our mechanics and whatnot, so, you know, he might have some ideas as far as when it comes to the shop and you know, how busy our guys are working on vehicles, and I don't know if it would be best for them to keep the maintenance as it is now, or if we were to work in some other local shops into that system to kind of relieve some of the load for maintenance. But, you know, I do think there's some pros. There could be some cons. It's uncertain right now. That's the best way for me to explain my feelings.
Okay. Garland? Let's hear a little bit from you, if you don't mind. Can you come up to where the microphone can hear you that way? Anybody watching at home can hear.
As far as the maintenance and everything, I would like to keep that because it's just like if you go to a place to have your oil changed, you got a 20-minute oil change. But when you come through our shop, they go under the whole thing, check for any leaks. You know, we find water pumps going out, just different things that I'd like to keep the maintenance on it if we could. And yes, they stay busy, but I like the plan, moving them in and out. But as far as the maintenance, I'd like to keep that because we've got them on like 7,500 miles now on the all that we have now, except for the police cars. They're on 3,500, I believe.
Right. Speaking of police, Chip, what are your thoughts from the police perspective? I know we've done, at least for the last couple of years, we've been doing well with rotating and bringing in new cars as a whole.
Well, as you can see, looking up here on the sheet up here, I think the cost benefit would be good for it. My questions would be, these are vehicles, but of course in police cars, there's equipment that goes along in the vehicle. What process does that have? And then two, like the repair and replace for us, car down, I mean, there's an officer not in a car. So how does that happen? Are there designated backup cars worked into this program? If it's not worked into this program, if I had a car crashed yesterday and it was totaled, how long would it be before we get a replacement car, you know, for an officer to get in? Those would be my concerns that I would have about it. But of course, having maintenance on cars and rotations on cars, I mean, that'd be the best thing for us, so.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, I guess the police cars would be more, different than anybody else because be the cost of putting all the equipment on it. Drilling the holes in the cars for spotlights, I guess that would be an issue, issue when you go to trade them in. A car with, there was a police car with the, screen between the front and back seat and the lights and everything, you know, that would be a little, and then if you do it on a 12-month basis, you know, the cost of re-equipping the car, you know, especially if they change the style from one year to another, the other stuff might not fit on there, but that would be more my concern in the police would it be everybody else because of the emergency equipment and the computers and everything goes in the car. I don't forgot what it was costing, but it was quite expensive when we bought a new car to put the lights and decals and the screen between the back seat and the front seat and drill the holes and cause this extra lights goes in the grill and stuff.
Yeah, most of the police vehicles, especially with the more expensive upfit costs, would be on 5-year terms. So that's would be the optimal time to replace those out. We take that into consideration, drilling of the holes and whatnot, when we're talking about resale value on those specific vehicles in particular. We work with a lot of government entities that have police fleets, and we do those vehicles for them as well. So we've gotten pretty good at our estimates in terms of values on those. A lot of that equipment too, because we're transferring them out 5 years, and right now we're probably transferring them out every 8 to 10 years. We could transfer that equipment over to that second vehicle and get another round of use out of it before having to replace it altogether. But that would come at your discretion with whatever types of equipment that you determine you could transfer or that we would want to upgrade and get new equipment on.
Based on our specs, that things that we are.
Yeah. Yeah, these vehicles would be done the exact same way that you have them today. We're just trying to help you guys replace them faster without it costing additional money. So some of the things, I mean, we even looked at, I know you guys have some Tahoes in your fleet that have pretty extensive aftermarket equipment installed in them up front. I want to say it was like $29,000 in equipment. So being able to transfer that over into a new unit would help curb into that cost. But also, we threw around the idea of maybe swapping into Interceptor Explorers, which would help cut into that cost too, not only on the vehicle, but also on the upfit. So there's a couple different ways that we can look at that to just help curb it, and still make it cost effective. But also the goal is really, especially with y'all's fleet, to get it transferred out sooner than we are today, because it's necessary for y'all. You need to have vehicles that are capable to do what you need to do on a daily basis and have them not break down on you.
And I think another thing to keep in mind is for the police equipment, and I don't remember dollar amounts, but, you know, the radar, the computers, and the camera systems are really the biggest expenses that you guys have to put when you put into a new vehicle. So a lot of that would transfer over whenever that vehicle is replaced, providing it's still in good working order.
Okay. Any other questions?
On the insurance, do we still cover the insurance ourselves, or we had to go through you?
Yep, same that you guys are doing today.
Anything else? Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Can we get one extra one of your packets? Actually, can we get two? We've got one board member out, and then Vice Mayor No joined us.
Sorry I was late.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because I don't know exactly what was going on, can I get a feel of what Chief thinks about this? Or has he already been up here?
He's been up here once.
Okay, I'll just wait and watch it on TV. Sorry, Chief.
We'll get you caught up. Okay, we're gonna move over, I believe, to the 2021-22 capital items and additional operating. Phyllis?
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Alderman. You have before you the list that was worked on and presented to you during the retreat. There's been a few changes, a few additions, some minor changes. We'll go down through this list to kind of refresh your memory of what was discussed during the retreat. And these are capital items and additional operating, so this is kind of a mixture of two different groups here. For the city admin department, the only thing that was requested was $10,000 to do some title searches for some cemeteries. Have any questions about that, Bruce? I think put that one on.
I just think, and I've spoken with the city administrator about this, I think the ones that we should start off with are the ones that we actively maintain. The ones that we have been out there weed eating and cleaning up the grass. Those are the ones I think we should start with, as they're the ones we're working on.
There has been some conversation about this, some scuttlebutt, just to clear up, and I had a little discussion with Garland. How many cemeteries does the city take care of? 19 or 20?
Some of them small,
Okay, and then this plan that we're talking about, we're gonna do like 3 at a time? Is that what we kind of discussed?
We talked about.
Basically
10.
do as many that we can get done with $10,000. And kind of what I'm saying is, it's gonna be hard to figure out how much the title search is gonna cost through, we was talking to Evan about that. And with it being, some of these are gonna be hard to track down with the age of the cemetery. We don't really know how far the $10,000 is gonna go. But yes, the approach would be, let's try to tackle at least 4 or 5 and see what the cost comes back. And then if they come back at like $4,000, then we'll try to do 4 or 5 more before the next fiscal year. And the next fiscal year, we'll be able to come back with you with saying, hey, we've got six of the cemeteries taken care of. As far as who the ownership is, for $15,000 more dollars or $10,000, whatever it may be, we can get, take care of the rest of them. That way, we're not maintaining and upkeeping a cemetery that we do not own as the city.
I think it's a great idea. How will you decide which ones to start at first?
Right now, we currently have, I'd say at least 14 or so that we probably mow on a continual basis. Now, that may not be weekly, but it's at least every couple of weeks they're out trimming and mowing. And of course, that's time consuming on certain ones because there's, the headstones and everything else that you've got to go around.
Is there, and I know it's a crazy question, and I think we've talked about it, is there any way to get any kind of number and man hours and time and fuel and stuff that we spend during the mowing season on doing this for the city?
Yeah, we could come up with something on that.
Oh, so we don't have it, you'd have to come up with, I'm just curious because, you get asked about them and it's always,
work orders every day. And if they do a cemetery, they list what equipment they had there, and usually it's the inmates. And one of my guys, so they had one Friday, they was there about 3.5 hours out off the bill.
okay, thank you.
Some of them go in there in 15 to 20 minutes, because it's just a small fenced-in area.
But I think that's the route to go, is to go after first the ones that we're actively maintaining before going after the ones that we're not. That way we
Well,
can find
I
those
agree.
owners and turn that over to them.
Well, like I said, there's just been some chitter chat, conversation. It's always good if you can give citizens somewhat of an answer to how much, when. I even seen one the other day, and matter of fact, I tagged Garland in it. A gentleman was actually donated his time and went out with a weed eater and a mower and cleaned it up. I don't remember which side it was, but. Was it? Okay, so. And he asked me, how can he get involved? I said, as far as I'm concerned, I didn't confer with you guys. I just said, as far as I'm concerned, get you a weed eater and a lawnmower and go at it. So. Oh, absolutely.
Okay? Phyllis?
I just want to make a little announcement. Kim, them, if y'all want to sit through this, you're more than welcome to. You can leave at any time. We get a little long-winded, and I don't think you want to be here at 10 o'clock with us.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you. The next item is in the finance department, in my own department. This is the hotel motel audit. We have 4 units that we've probably never done an audit on that I know of, and this would be in conjunction with the county, using their audit team that they have. And basically, they would go in and audit the 4 facilities that we have here to make sure that they are documenting and giving us the credit for taxes that we should be getting.
Now, Phyllis, that 3,200, that does not include the Airbnbs?
It does not include the Airbnbs.
How much were the Airbnbs?
I want to say they were like 400 each.
400 each? Because we've got several in the city that operate year-round.
Yes, and since the state is taking that over, we are now starting to see Airbnb money. So we definitely need to be doing audit on the Airbnbs, but these are the bigger ones, and this would be where we would see substantial money, if there is any. So this is just recommendation. We talked about this last year during the budgets. Wanted to bring it back up again this year because we definitely need to do an audit. Maybe, one year we do the hotel motels and the next year we do the Airbnbs, just whatever the board wants to do. The next item is engineering department, and this is a split position with planning. They have agreed to split one person. The cost is about $32,500 for each department. IT, and if we need to have any discussion about that, just stop me. IT has a position on here. This is actually a part-time position that he would like to convert to a full-time position. And the $45,000 is the additional cost for a full-time person on top of what we already have in the budget for part-time,
That include benefits?
with benefits.
Okay.
Planning has requested a vehicle at about $35,000.
Oh, I don't know. Is that vehicle not working for you?
It works on, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sometimes.
I was gonna say, last Tuesday, it did not.
Or it has trouble on any day of the week that has DAY in it. Saturday, Monday, Tuesday.
I think this is an important one. We almost lost Bo for a planning commission meeting, which, if you haven't been to planning commission, he's a very integral part of it.
Next on our list is the codes department. They have two items, intergov, training and configuration, and then a vehicle for the inspector. And Randolph may want to discuss the intergov configuration because I'm not exactly sure if I have covered all of the costs, because he does have 2 or 3 different scenarios on that intergov upgrade. And
Randolph, if you could come up to the microphone, that way people could hear you at home.
The intergov that we're working on, the deal that's before you, there's an upgrade that's due. And Glenn can chime in on our Silverlight and our HTML that Microsoft has chosen to no longer support Silverlight come into summer, so everything's gonna be HTML. Of course, we jumped into intergov a few years ago, and when we reached out to them for the increase in the impact fees, our software had to be rewritten to generate fees, the new fees as they've been adopted. So I reached out to them end of last year and was told that we'll get a quote to you. I think it was early January that we were to expect to get the quote back. So they sent us a quote of $20,600, I think it was, to do the rewrite. The hours that went into this and the time and so forth, the testing and the implementation. So we discussed that at great length, and the best we could come up with was $20,000, roughly $600. So they commenced to try to, well, they didn't try. They were saying, okay, well, look, here's the deal. You're doing an upgrade, or an upgrade's coming from the version of intergov that we currently are using, and now mind you, we're under contract with them right now for a $36,000 annual maintenance to start with. And Glenn can speak more about what or anyone other than I, about what would be considered in the maintenance contract. We discussed, we tried to understand why that they were charging us $20,600 to rewrite the change that was made by this board for the impact fees. It has to be changed in our intergov. So,
Well, the upgrade is covered under maintenance. It's covered. The deal with this one is it's so great, it's more than half the product, it's almost 2/3 of the product that they've rewritten in HTML5 to get rid of Silverlight. Part of this package, okay, it's $26,000 to do the permitting, rewrites and everything.
impact fees.
Well, we're going to have an upgrade on top of that too. Plus, there's going to have to be training on all this new stuff for Missy and Connie and everybody else. And this 40,000 is, what I've seen, is kind of a comprehensive package that runs a full 12 months and gives us kind of unlimited, not unlimited, but a lot of training built in, a lot of customizations built in. If we added all that stuff up and did each one à la carte, I think we're going to hit about the exact same figure. With the
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
we'd
the-
end up with,
training and all that stuff and they're giving us this one comprehensive package that covers that and more.
Yeah, and,
It just
and,
seems like it's a better, even though it just seems like it's a better deal that way than doing them all à la carte like that.
Yeah,
I think
I'd
we'd
just-
end up with a whole lot more, and the only reason I'm saying that is because like what we've talked about on the impact fees, we've also said we also need to update the tap fees, which I know the board's familiar with.
and permit fees.
And then we was gonna update the permit fees. So kind of what me and Randolph had talked about back in January was, instead of paying $20,000 just to get the impact fees rewritten and taken care of, what other options is out there? And they basically said, hey, if you do a $40,000 one-year agreement with them, the way they presented it to us, it would be unlimited as far as writing. So as far as redoing the permit fees, as far as and I'll get on the impact fee in a minute, is why that's different, but the impact fees and any other changes that we need to make in that 12-month cycle, it's taken care of with the $40,000, which also includes training, which just so happens, since we're going from Silverlight to HTML or however they're doing that, it basically will cover some of that training. Now, that is not unlimited. They'll come on site and do some training, but a lot of it is remote, and I think they'll do a lot of the training or additional training as far as they'll have, and Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're willing to have basically kind of like a project manager that's devoted
Yes.
to Laverne, that if Missy or Connie or Randall, anybody has any questions, they can walk them through it and stuff like that. That's all included in that $40,000.
Yep.
Going back to the impact fee, it's part of the explanation they gave us as to why that's not included in the yearly maintenance is basically the fire impact fee. We currently didn't have one, so they had to they're gonna have to rewrite all of that. That way, whenever that fee is accounted for, in the background, they pretty much gotta do a whole lot of worksheets. And that's what they're saying is the hours that you would have to spend that's above and beyond just a normal maintenance contract, you get charged an hourly fee, and that's what totaled up to the $20,000. So, in my opinion, with the options we've been presented with, it only makes sense to do the $40,000 contract, and then just make sure that this current year, we update all the fees, which that's what we've already talked about doing anyways. And then in the future, if we have a fee schedule like what we've talked about, to my understanding, they will not charge in the future, like if your permit fee goes from $500 to $1,000, that's simple as just, they fix that on the fly. Now, if you charge differently, like right now, we base our building permits on valuation, and we're talking about going to a square footage cost, you would have to pay for that to be rewritten. So that's kind of what it would,
And that
ultimately
40,000 is
be.
gonna cover that. I mean, it's written into that quote that they've given us that when we do, and we are gonna bring to y'all an increase in the permit fees, and this work through Intergov will be included in that 40 grand, so.
I just think it's important that if we're going to do it, we go ahead and get those formulas
We're already working on
changed
it.
and get that done this year. That way, as I go forward, if we try to change any of the permits,
We met in here the other
10,
day,
20 years,
several of us.
it's just a update versus more reformulation.
and when we went with Intergov, and it was with any product that we looked at, they all suggested that you add money to the permit fee to cover the cost of the platform to begin with, which we've not done, but that is something when we are rewriting this, you know, it can be an extra $50, $25, $70, just something to curb the cost. That way, you know, the citizens' tax dollars are not going to pay for a permitting system that the builders and the contractors and stuff like that are what it's mainly there for.
Is this intergov thing, is it just for planning, or do other departments have it? Excuse my computer stupidity, but,
Well, it's actually land management software.
oh,
So,
okay.
so from Adam to Bo, sorry, Bo. Adam and Bo and myself, of course, I think Kyle is an administrator on it as well. Glenn and Jackie have access to it as well, so, but I mean, it's, and I think police has an intergov Tyler product that they use as well, but what we're talking about is a land management software that's planning, codes, building.
But it could cover more departments, though. We
Yeah.
could expand upon it. I think when we do, we'll end up with this same scenario that we'll have to look at, because it's all based on licensing fee. So right now, we've got, you know, X amount of licenses that they can
15.
use.
15.
So
of
if we
them.
have to upgrade that or increase that, which you will if we ever get to add municipal codes officers and stuff like that, or additional building inspectors, we'll need to increase the license. It's going to increase the cost, but that's something in the future. But we could also expand on it, because like right now, the tap fees and stuff are included in this, but there probably could be some other fees that's water, sewer, stormwater related that you could roll into this also. So it can be expanded. Right now, though, it's mainly the permitting through codes and stuff like that.
And we're gonna try to cram as many fee changes into this next 12 months as we possibly can under this $40,000. We want to be good stewards of that money. I in particular want to see as much change as we can get changed.
And if it
utilize
goes
them.
out to other departments, as you say, requires more training for different software?
If we expanded it, like I said, in the future, if we did expand and include a different department, I'm sure we'd have to do training and stuff. So it would end up in the future, let's say 3 years from now, we decide to implement that all water and sewer and stormwater goes through it also. If we do that, I would suggest at that point in time, we do another $40,000 yearly contract to make all the changes, do the updates, have the training that's needed, and then, of course, you know, hopefully that'll take care of it until we decide to expand again, if that even happens.
I want to include Curtis in this, to be able to use this as well. I mean, when we first started looking at this, you know, Curtis needs to be in this suite, intergov suite with us as well for his fire inspections, and that way we can refer back to anything that the fire inspectors have looked at, his fire plans exam. So already I can tell you that I need one more license now, but you can't buy just one. You've got to buy them in groups of 5, wouldn't it, Kyle? Yeah, groups of 5. And I don't necessarily see that we spend that kind of money to get 5 licenses when I just need the one extra. So at some point in time, like Kyle mentioned, you know, we're going to add another codes enforcement officer and hopefully get another building inspector sooner rather than later. So there's 3. You know, if we bought 5, then we're only utilizing 3 of the 5. But trust me, I mean, we can find a way to. I'll put you to work.
On a computer?
Please don't.
Good luck with that.
Any other questions?
It'd be like me doing handyman work, Steve.
Oh, God.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And then the other item that Codes has on their request is a truck for an inspector. Next section is our police. I'm gonna just go down through and list all of them, and then we can have discussion. The chief is asked to convert an open IT position that's in the police department to an accreditation manager. He's requested 2 crime suppression officers, 1 canine officer, upgrade 1 canine officer handler to a sergeant, upgrade the CAD, RMS, and mobile system, purchase a new canine, purchase 10 replacement vehicles, and he's requested the engineering design for building a new police station. If you have any questions about any of those.
So just a little bit is what he's asking for this year.
It's just a,
So our start off, at least, I think the accreditation portion, to hold off on right now. I know it's a kind of convert an open position to that, but there's a lot of discussions, I know, with accreditation, which one we go with, and then all the components with that. I know one big part is vehicles, which is what we were discussing earlier, and making sure we have the complete, all the same types of vehicles, looking through some of the CALIA stuff. It's complicated.
Well, the accreditation manager is not just for accrediting the department when it comes to policy and procedures and things like that. It's also someone at the department that can keep us up on our policies. Right now, if I pull up our policies right now, you'll see that it has Ted Boyd as the chief, and they hadn't been updated since 2010. A lot of those policies, well, the main policies that has been governed by state law has been changed, but operating procedures and things like that, that hadn't been done because we haven't had somebody solely dedicated to that. The accreditation is just a part of it. If we're gonna have somebody to do it, then we should go for accreditation. And one of the benefits of being accredited is the insurance break per officer that goes along with that. There are two different accreditations that you can achieve, which one being a national through CALIA, and one on the state level, which is the Tennessee version of that. But if you are CALIA certified, then you automatically get the state, because most of the standards are the same. They run parallel with each other. But the biggest thing is the fact that we have not updated policy since 2010. And that's been 2 chiefs ago. And it's not a job. I tried it in a position that I was holding before interim chief. It's just not something that you can do in addition to another job. It's something that somebody full-time needs to handle.
So more of a policies and procedures manager than accreditation.
Yes, I titled it that, but yes, it's somebody that's gonna
Okay.
sit there and be responsible for policy. But also, when I presented it, I don't know if y'all remember that this person will also assist in training as well, which I can speak on because it was just me having to try to do all of these things, and it just wasn't working out. And the IT position has been vacant for 4 years now, since Brian Rowland left. We haven't had it, and when we had it, it just wasn't, with the new world systems that we have, it just wasn't enough work to keep him occupied, which he got to the point where he got frustrated and he left. I know Glenn may say differently, but with the addition of his person, that may help out, and plus we have some pretty tech savvy people there already. So instead of trying to create this position, I just wanted to reclassify a position.
Bruce?
I know several years ago, we had looked at accreditation through CALIA, and it was a very large job to undertake. I guess, Chief, one question I have, is this a sworn position or non-sworn?
When I initially presented it, I wanted to be sworn, but after I did more research on it, be a non-sworn position.
Okay. That was really my main
I do have the
question.
job description if you all want. The job description that I had the pay study done on, if you all want a copy of that, I can.
And Mayor, in my opinion, you know, it's $13,000 estimate to upgrade that position. You know, if you're upgrading a vacant position to something that you need, you know, I think it could be a good thing to do. Obviously, there's a lot of policies, and with the way the world is right now with policing, I think it would be critical to make sure we have the most up-to-date policies and procedures for the police department. And so personally, I think it would be a good idea, but it's
And-
not my decision, so.
And knowing that it's not just accreditation, that this is policy and procedure, which is how I've reclassified it, at least on my capital plan spreadsheet, is, I think that makes a big difference, because if it's just accreditation
No,
only,
this
I
is-
can see holding off on it. But if it's going to be something where it's a combination, where we can get these policies and procedures, which we're doing in-house as well, with some of our own for City Hall, so.
And there's a couple different components that go along with training as well. You have the actual teaching part of training, but you also have the business side of reserving hotel rooms, registrations, payments, and things like that, that this person can assist whoever is in that position. But this is something that's been lagging in the department. Like I said, I attempted to do it. You have to have a chief, and you have to have other commanders in place that make it a priority to get it done, and just having it as an ancillary duty for somebody, we'll still be in the same position 10 years from now.
So is that you take an officer?
Initially, yes, but now no. It's taking a IT spot that we had that's been vacant for 4 years and adding this fund to it for this position.
It could be an officer that takes the role.
It could be an officer that take the position.
And then you would refill that position,
Yeah.
depending on who it was that got the role.
I don't know if any officer would want it,
I was
but
gonna say, would it be a step up for an officer, or would it?
oh yeah, it'd be a great step up. But one of the biggest things, the education requirements and things like that is very strict on this job description.
Any other questions?
How many, opening positions you got vacant now?
So right now, we have 6 in the process they passed the background stage, so they're getting the psychologicals and things done. So right now, we have 4 vacant, which 2 of those 4 vacants would be chief and deputy chief. So if these 6 have already made it through the background, as long as their psychologicals come back and say that they are not sane, then we'll have 6 additions.
And that was one of the big charges that whenever Chief Davis came in, was to fill those positions with quality employees, quality officers, as quickly as we can.
Yeah, when I took over as interim, we had 15 positions open, and now we're down to 4.
Thank you, sir.
Want me to stick around for a second?
Possibly.
Any other questions about any of the other items for the police department?
I'll just say that there's 3 on here for K-9. I think they are essential. We all know we recently purchased 1 K-9, but Lil Mike is getting to the point age-wise where we have to consider a replacement. My understanding is that with this most recent licensing for him, he passed by the skin of his teeth. So this would give us a little bit of time to get a new dog in, get them trained with a handler, so that rather than having a situation where little Mike is not able to pass, instead we can just kind of release Mike.
And the overall goal is to have 7-day coverage, at least 2 dogs every day for 7 days, at least between 18 and 20 hours a day, and upgrade one of the positions to a supervisor to break them away from the crime suppression unit, which is why I have extra guys that I wanted for that division. Because right now, a K-9 officer, you can see, sometimes you see crime suppression guys in here working a board meeting. Well, if it's a K-9 officer here working, that dog is not doing us any good in the car. Or if you have a K-9 officer working a zone, answering an alarm call, well, alarm calls will be a little bit different, but other calls, the dog, we're not getting use out of the dog, so it's time to move our K-9 to their own unit that they could be available to do other things. And you need at least 2 working at all times.
And Mayor,
Off track here, what's the ETA on our new one that's coming?
He ships out, he sent me a text, it was supposed to be next week, but he ships out for 2 weeks on, he sent it to me just before I got over here, so I just got the dates.
You're talking about.
He leaves on May 16th, so he'll be there in
Yeah, the one
Louisiana from the
replacing
16th
shop.
through the 28th.
Turbo.
Turbo, yeah.
So we'll have our new K-9 on May 29th,
Wonderful.
ready to work. May 29th, ready to work. So he has to go there for 2 weeks to
Then
train
he'll
with
come
him.
here and get sworn in.
Then he'll
Yes.
get sworn in and we'll be rocking and rolling.
Nice.
And while we're talking about Jacques and Turbo, matter of fact, Friday, we did get an email from the insurance company about, what we would get for insurance for the loss of Jacques, and it turned out to be $7,423. They basically
Half.
took his age and spread the cost of the dog out over the 12 years, and then calculated how old he was, how much time was left, and came up with that number. So that's what we should get from insurance proceeds for Jacques, which we could obviously put towards either Turbo or this new dog.
Turbo's paid for,
True.
so it'll be for the new.
Yeah, I stopped up there at that place and thanked them for their donation.
That's Scott Equipment.
Yes, we had, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're just jumping around on the replacement of vehicles. How would that tie in if we went with the enterprise group? How does that work out for you?
I'm not sure exactly how to work out as far as the beginning stages would be. That part I don't know, but depending on if we don't go with them and we hold off of getting vehicles, we'll be down 10 cars because we're dropping cars. Seem like every week now, but
That's why the rotation, regardless of whether
The
it's
rotation would be
enterprise or it's here at the city, it's not a good idea just to put that off. That, we've got to make that a standard, which
yeah.
is what we've been
If
trying to do.
yeah.
And my understanding of the process is if we do get into an agreement with Enterprise to do this program, they already have a list of vehicles that they feel we should go ahead and switch out. We would look at those vehicles and make that determination and make sure that those are the ones we want to do. And I don't know what those vehicles are at this point. But basically, they would order what is needed or find on a lot somewhere if they are on a lot somewhere. And then we would go through the process of putting it into that program. And of course, the equipment, if it cannot be switched over from the existing vehicle, then obviously we would have to order equipment and all of that and, work out that whole process. And I don't know the exact details, but that's my basic understanding of it.
And they really didn't answer about backups. If we
You
break the
could,
car.
you could add them to the program is the way I take it. So if you want to switch out 10 vehicles, you would add 2 more as a replacement vehicle. So you would have 2 on hand in
2 on
case you
hand.
needed them. You would just add them to the program.
My concern with that is emergency needs. Whenever we have situations like just a few months ago where we had multiple cars down, I want to say
Right.
probably 3 to 4 cars. And if we get to that point, turnaround time. So,
But that's like just how we are now as far as ordering vehicles. There's that same turnaround time either way we
The
go.
turnaround time is just, yeah. We got cars ordered now that we have no, can't determine when they'll be here, so.
any other
Still
questions?
getting them from Murfreesboro Ford, or we're getting some from the GM dealer now?
No, so being that we switched over to the Chevy Tahoe, we're using, can't think of the dealership name, it's in Lebanon,
Wilson
right off.
County.
Wilson.
Wilson County.
Wilson
is-
County set up.
Wilson, yeah. We're using them. We've had some issues with Ford of Murfreesboro in the past. They wasn't filling our invoices. That's the
We're
reason
not getting
why.
no more from Murfreesboro Ford, they're all coming from Wilson County.
Yeah, there was some issues there. That was a Chief Walker thing. I'm not really sure what happened, but we had already switched over to Wilson County.
Yeah, many times they would, if I remember correctly, they would tell us, yes, we have this available on the lot.
And
We go ahead and make the purchase, then it's no longer on the lot and it can't be located.
A lot of it was turnaround time, lead times for getting the new vehicles. And we got one batch in that one of them was damaged.
One of them, yeah.
And so we've had several issues with Ford of Murfreesboro. So, if we went through the enterprise, they might could pull from other locations or have better luck than we have. So it's hard to say. Of course, I would like to get away from Explorers. I've not made that a secret from anybody, but,
Explorers or Tahoes?
I want to get away from
He wants
Tahoes.
to get away
I'd
from
like to go
Tahoes,
back
which,
to the
which I'm not
Explorers.
necessarily against, because we've seen some things pop up that, we wasn't anticipating with the oil. We don't know if it's gonna be a recall situation or not, but we're monitoring that right now.
Any-
You,
any
you wanna get away from what now? I didn't,
The
Tahoes.
Tahoes.
I wanna get away from the
The newest
Tahoes.
vehicles.
where are you trying to go?
Stay
back to
with
the
the
Explorers,
Explorers,
see.
the Explorers.
I thought you said you wanna get away from the
No,
Explorer.
I want to get away from the Tahoes. I may have misspoken when I said.
Oh, okay.
It's an oil issue.
Just out of curiosity, does Thomas, or who decides if a vehicle is ready to be retired?
Thomas, really, we take advice from Thomas. He knows the cars better than we do. We just drive them. He keeps them up. I've already had a conversation with him on vehicles, and we're seeing eye to eye on that.
Now, Chief, I don't know if you know much about this. This is just from talking to different people, but Tahoes are, from what I've been hearing, better for your highway traffic versus what we see with back roads, Murfreesboro, Waldron Road.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest things I can tell you all with a Tahoe is saved two officers' lives because they sit so high. When Lieutenant Goins, the shooting that he had, it saved his life. Also saved Darby's life as well. Both those were in Tahoe. So that would be my selling point. But
So if you go back to Ford, what dealer would you go to if you're not happy with Murfreesboro?
we would still use like Wilson County Ford or something like that.
Well, there is a possibility to buy
Oh,
them out
Wilson
of.
County got a Ford?
Yeah, well,
No, they deal with the Chevys.
they did, yeah, but
There is a dealer out of West Tennessee that has on the state contract we might be able to buy from
Correct.
them as well.
Yeah.
And that's a
And
Ford.
Enterprise does Ford? I wasn't here, I hate to have to
The-
ask.
think Enterprise does it.
they'll do whatever car
They can do any of them. They can do any of them.
Now, as far as the service department is at Ford, they're fine. It's just the ordering part is
It's
not
the fleet sales.
the problem.
Problem we had with them was, I think one year we gave them a PO for 5, like the middle of October, and they never was giving us a ship date.
Right.
Because usually you get it all the way through. And found out that they wasn't ordered till February,
I don't pay
So that they can
attention.
meet their quotas.
so they can meet their quotas for the next year.
I don't pay attention to other cities. What do they got?
It's a mix. It's a mix. Like Smyrna, you'll see heavy Dodge Durangos, which we want to stay away from those. But Nashville just really started getting Explorers on their fleet. The Explorers is the work vehicle. Chevy Tahoes for the size, like I was in my presentation, we do have a need for some. You guys who have SWAT duties to carry the extra gear, crime scene tech, uniform crime scene techs and people like that, a Tahoe would be sufficient for them, as well as field training officers. Those are the ones that's actually driving it now because they have their equipment, plus their trainees' equipment in the car, that they need the extra space. So there's a need, but a new car is a new car for us.
What I'm hearing from you all sounds to me like Ford is better mechanically and a Tahoe is safer.
I will have to say it right now, but the Tahoe, it has saved 2 officers' lives. So.
Garland, if you could come up to the mic that way, people at home could hear you.
I don't know if Chief Davis knew, but starting either the 22s or the 23s, they're going back to two-wheel drive on the Explorers. Instead of these we got now, it's all-wheel drive.
Okay.
So that's a big thing there too, especially in the snow and ice.
Is that just more to tear up?
I'd like to say, now, the Explorers, you know, we've had some issues with them with the catalytic converters and stuff, but it was all called under warranty. I think we may have paid for a couple of sets. But, you know, if they get in a high pursuit, you know, they're gonna bring it over and get brakes put on it, you know, because they're gonna burn the brakes up. But other than that, we hadn't had a lot of, I think we've had 2 or 3 with the water pump go out, and they were under warranty, so everything's, now we're getting our 13s, it's getting old, and Some of them's got 140, 50,000 miles on them. But I think they've got a good car, you know, for what they were made for.
Like on a police car, if it's showing 143,000,
You're looking at about 350,000 hours.
you'd probably have to add percent, because a lot of times
It's-
when they're
Yeah.
they're
Idle
running
hours-
and sitting a
idle
lot.
hours is more.
Idling, stop and go, fast, yeah.
About like a taxi cab. I mean, it's wear and tear on them things.
Yeah, exactly.
Chief, this is more tongue in cheek, but you're not wanting to go to the cyber trucks like Chief Beasley?
No, we'll let them have that.
I know Nick's been looking at them, so. Thank you, sir. Speaking of fire, they're
ready?
next.
Fire has 2 items on the request list. That's for a training compliance officer and emergency medical training. You have any questions on either of those items?
The emergency medical officer, that'd probably be just somebody that moves up, or would it be a whole new person?
For the training compliance officer, we'll add one to the complement. It could be a battalion chief that moves over to the rank. Bruce and I have spoken, and Mayor and I have spoken about it. It needs to be sent to the compensation analyst to see exactly where that job will land as in pay scale. Talking with MTAS, that job as an 8-hour job would often be called assistant chief, which assistant chief could come in at a higher pay rate than a battalion chief locally. And so the battalion chief's position traditionally is a 24-hour position of response over a group of people in certain cities. This job, individually set up, could be taken care of by a lieutenant's rank, but when you compile the training position for fire and EMS, as well as the compliance with OSHA, bloodborne pathogens, all the things that go along with it, to me, it brings a heftier responsibility. We're taking about 4 to 6 people's jobs that we're all handling individually and trying to give it to one centralized location to where it can be responsible on an 8-hour day, Monday through Friday. My goal is to make it at a battalion chief's rank.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have Streets Department. Streets has requested a cargo van for inmates, 2 seasonal laborers for litter pickup, which would replace the inmates, and a snowplow truck.
So let's talk about the inmates, because we've got a determination to make here, and that's, if we stay with the inmates, then, that would be the 2 seasonal laborers for the litter pickup. We go with the seasonals, then we don't necessarily need the cargo van for the inmates. So, and right now, how many inmates are we getting a day usually?
2, sometimes if we're lucky 3.
Okay.
That's about what we would. But when you're
And-
looking at a 2.5, 3 hour turnaround going up there and coming back, they hit the traffic of a morning, so
Okay.
coming back, so.
And all the liability for the inmates are on the city, correct?
I know since we had this conversation a while back and listening to Bruce and everything, every time I see those guys now, man, I move over, it's almost like I'm paranoid. So,
And
it's
then-
a lot of pressure.
It's a risk, it is.
Huh?
It is a lot of
It is a
pressure.
risk, yeah.
So,
I know the county had 2 or 3 incidents on, I think I told you, on the interstate, and one of them was, no fault of his own, I think he had a heart attack, but the county still paid for it, and it was over $800,000 at Stonecrest just for the one.
so the 2 seasonal laborers for litter pickup are part-time? With no full-time benefits?
No.
And then we don't have to get the van and we get rid of the liability? Unless I'm missing something, I see that as a win-win situation.
Unless liability is a word or a phrase that Bruce absolutely loves.
Well, the two inmates, somebody picks them up, stays with them all day, so.
Right,
You got
right.
two inmates, you got one employee,
Yes,
plus a van, so if you eliminate the inmates, you actually can find that worker that's tending to inmates
Yes.
can do something else, so, and he's full-time,
right.
so, two part-time, if he can be
If we could
done,
get it.
that'd probably be a savings.
One
Possible.
concern that I do have is if we go with seasonal or part-time, either way, is finding applicants for those positions. We are having quite a time getting applicants for those
That was my next question.
lower paid jobs, especially without any benefits.
When you say seasonal, what season?
Well, it's pretty, I mean, fall and the summer and all, but now wintertime, no.
Well, it'd be fall, summer, and spring, but y'all don't mow in the winter.
You still have litter pickup.
Still got a little,
When we ran seasonals, their hire period usually ran from the end of March to the end of October.
no, but
Yeah, that'd be the issue, finding the field.
you know, we're one short now. I think I told you at the budget retreat, I was full, and the next week he left. And I think we got one applicant today.
Well, I know that's hopefully one thing we hope to address with all of HR is to be able to retool a position to get that position start recruiting, not just posting and waiting on people to apply, but actually recruiting applicants. So I would say start off with the seasonal, in my opinion, and let's see if we can fill them. And if we get to the point where next year we're coming back and saying, hey, the seasonal didn't work, we either need to go back to inmates or we need to look at turning it, into a full-time position. Thoughts from anybody?
That'll give you a chance to maybe, work on the old van, get it set aside just for a little bit.
Ain't much hope for that one.
Has anybody ever considered subcontracting that out? To a private firm?
I don't know who it would be because I'd have it, no.
I don't know.
I'm looking at the interstate, ours looks good compared to the interstate, and they got people contracted to do that.
I know the county, I talked to somebody the other day that I believe it was a county, it had to be the county, they do I-24, they take inmates to I-24, I believe it was the county I talked to, I'm pretty sure.
I seen them out there with 3. The time they do from Davidson County line to Smyrna, each side,
It's time to do it again.
it's time to do it again. I mean, it's just, they throw it out, signs get knocked down, they don't put them back up. We probably got 700-800 yards of fence down that I've turned in and the state's not fixed it.
Can't say I've ever heard of a subcontracting group for litter.
No, I mean, the ones that do it on the interstate, they do the mowing. I think he's here local. The guy that mows the interstate, he's here local.
I think we've answered our own question, and I agree with what everyone's saying here, is to go with the seasonal labourers and see what happens, and if we can get them, great. If we can't, we'll really look at it next year.
Get ahead of the curve.
There you go, Mr Vice Chair, well done.
So,
Oh, we're gonna hit the
Well.
curve.
huh?
We're gonna hit the curve.
No, in my opinion, I think the inmates being responsible for them is a no-brainer. Getting two, part-time employees is good, and if you have to have them cut, what is that?
It's a can that's been kicked.
Oh,
So,
oh,
and don't you like the name on it?
we've, yeah, they kicked that.
David, don't you have some part-time people at the park in the summertime? How does that work out?
Well, we used to try to hire seasonals, and our seasonals weren't part-time. They were based on 40 hours a week, so they were actually working full-time hours. They just didn't have the benefits. But they were in that window, 1st of April to end of September, end of October. We had a hard time keeping those jobs filled because everybody wanted benefits.
So it's a constant turnover?
It is, the good thing about it was they were working full-time hours and getting paid full-time, but then they were constantly looking for that next step.
What's a seasonal worker make?
$10, $12 an hour. If that, somewhere around it.
Those are all good points, but like I said, every time I see you guys out there with them inmates now, I just take off. I feel like I'm getting ready to throw an axe.
Now, I had the guy that's over the workhouse call me last week and said he could send us more inmates. And Bruce and I have already talked about it. He said they're felons that's been released to work. And I told him we don't even address that. I got the answer one time, that was enough.
Yeah, that would be concerning.
Yes.
The next item under Garland is a service truck for the fleet.
Excuse me.
Any questions about that vehicle? If not, we'll move on down to Parks and Rec, and I'll just go through these and then we can have a discussion with David. He's requesting 1 full-time employee for the park side, 1 part-time employee for the park side, 1 full-time employee in the maintenance area, and 2 part-time janitorial employees for the maintenance area. He would like to remove a laborer 1 position and promote that to a laborer 2 position. He's got some park updates, repair the back parking lot, extend the Greenway design survey, the Winter Wonderland Parade of Lights, and then we have briefly mentioned discussing the log cabin, whether to repair it, donate it, or ignore it.
Well, let's go with the easy one, which is the parks update. For anybody who is wondering, because I know that's a very descriptive term, that's just about everything. Your park signs, your trash cans, which have not truly been replaced since they were installed. Let's see here, there's been some talk about, don't know if it's in this one or if it's in the Greenway portion, about a Greenway Trailhead sign.
Yes, sir, that
some
was included
benches.
in the park updates. Trash cans, several signs, mulch for top-off veterans, the swing set up there, mulch for Mankin, Trailway sign at the Greenway, which we do not have, and a replacement water fountain for the first set of ball complexes. It's a high-low wall-mounted fountain. That's been inoperative. One side was inoperative, the other side has just been vandalized, so it's gonna need to be replaced.
What about ADA accommodations for that?
The high-low is ADA compliant. What we have there now is kind of a basic replacement for that.
Okay. And then the fun one, let's talk about the log cabin, which if any of y'all have not been over there recently, it is currently roped off. I want to say it's the front is bowing out, front wall, and this has been around for years and years. I can't even say I remember a time when there's been any work done on it. Phyllis, Bruce, do y'all aware of any?
I think back when Robin Grubbs was here, maybe, there was about, what, $5,000 worth of work done on it?
Yeah,
Not
there's,
much.
there's never been much done to it since we've had it.
Was that an actual log cabin that was from the city, or is that from somewhere else?
It was from here. and
It was
somebody
moved
was-
from,
I've heard
Mary Kay?
River Road over here.
I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I've heard 5 different stories about that thing. In my opinion, don't get me wrong, I think that historical stuff is good, but this thing is, you know,
I think we've reached out to 4 different companies that rehab structures like that. We got 1 response. We emailed them some pictures. We're still waiting on a rough quote. I think it's gonna come in. My personal opinion is kind of like yours. If we had an extra $50,000 or $75,000 to throw at this thing, what would we do with it if we did get it rehabbed? I mean, is it gonna Are we gonna open it up for the public to come in and tour? I don't know if that's such a great idea, if that's a safe idea. You know, the way it sits right now, we have run homeless off in the past, homesteaders trying to live in there. It's pretty unsafe. That's why we put the caution tape around it.
Does Cannonsburg don't want it?
We have not reached out to them. We were waiting to see what you guys wanted to do. I'm not even sure they'd bite that off, because you'd have to come in and disassemble it. I don't know how they moved it in here. If they moved
They
it in
moved it
one
in here
piece.
to like to move the house.
Yeah, I don't know if
That-
they could possibly do that now, but they'd have to come in and sure up each wall that's in there, because it's basically your door frame, your door jamb is holding the whole structure up now.
Basically, the logs is in bad shape.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, it would take quite a bit. I think it would have to be revamped, completely re-chinked. So you're talking about throwing a bunch of money at something that I don't know what we would do with in the future.
Yeah, I don't see the city spending a penny on that thing would be a waste of money. I mean, it's kinda like that old Andy Griffith episode where they're trying to get rid of that cannon. You know, Glenn, you remember, don't you?
Well, and I'm like you, I like the historical aspect of it, but at some point, we gotta, I think, wash our hands
We
of it.
tried to get a grant on it a few years back, but because it was been moved, we had trouble there. We have spent a lot of time on different options, but we couldn't get no grant on it. We had some logs donated by private individual, but we couldn't get them, nobody saw them because everybody was scared it might have nails in it, and we never could get a true going on it. One estimate, we had a guy come look at it, he said it cost about $100,000 to get it up in good shape. And
And that's probably when it was in semi-good shape.
yeah,
It's in terrible shape now.
it ain't getting no better over there. And really, we've had homeless and if we could get Cannonsboro to take it, it would find a good home up there.
Well,
You know,
I'll probably catch some flack for this, but I think we need to let Garland take a dump truck and a machine over there and load that thing. Or whoever's got one, somebody in this city's got one, I've seen them.
Well,
Michael, somebody, and crunch it.
Vice Mayor, it's funny that you referenced the Andy Griffith Show because whenever you mentioned 50 to 75,000, I just went up to Granville, Tennessee, and they have their Andy Griffith Festival, and they have log cabins up there.
There you go.
But they are in a lot better condition, and they have them to where you can walk through. They have it set up with a working chimney. You can see how people slept. You can even they even have a window for logs to be handed into the home. You see, just very authentic. And I'm sitting here thinking that it would take a significant amount of money to get our current log cabin to look anywhere close to that.
I'm
so-
actually surprised at with the conspiracist that Bruce is, that cabin's gonna fall on somebody and they're gonna sue the city.
Well, that's what we're trying to avoid. That's why we're bringing it to you guys, because it is in pretty bad shape.
And that's why it's currently roped off as well.
Well,
Okay.
my comment is obviously trying to be progressive moving forward. Let's make a decision of what to do with it, whether it's to put on the Parks and Recs, come up with an idea of what to do with it, or go out to try and find to do something with it, and or historical group to figure out what to do. Let's find out something to do one time and let's move forward with it.
I wanna know who the person is that goes out and talks to whoever and tries to give them that cabin. What are you gonna say to them?
That would be this gentleman right here.
And our first, if you guys are on board with it, would be to reach out to Cannonsburg and see if they are actually have somebody that would be willing to take it off our hands at this point, we don't want to have to pay somebody to demo this thing for us.
We can't demo that ourselves.
Well, I mean, the fire department could.
Hey, there you go. Absolutely. I can't imagine paying anybody to to demo that thing.
There's actually, people that, when they sell a big farm and it's got a home on it, they'll sell the home to move it and, sell the barn for barn wood. And it's people that buys old log
Oh, I'm sure we
cabins.
wouldn't have an issue getting somebody to take it off our hands.
We don't gov deals. Marketplace. I mean, I can't believe we're having this conversation about this thing. We've had it before. I'm like, what Graham says, let's kick that can down the road.
No, I'm not saying, what I'm saying is let's at least reach out to several groups, see if they're interested in it. If they're not, then we can make a decision ourselves.
So we know Cannonsburg is a group. Possibly Rutherford County Historical Preservation Society, and maybe the Battlefield, I would think. Is there any others that anyone can think of?
What kind of, story are you gonna tell them about it?
We'll take the pictures that we have and send it to
Gonna
them
make
and say, are
something
you
up?
interested in this? Help us out.
The truth always works. Just tell
So
them.
Dennis, let's follow this up, Dennis. I think what it was when we were gonna start building the commercial buildings of Stones River Road and Stones River Cove, that's where the building was found. And then the city got it moved from Stones River Road over.
It was originally moved right behind the, CID building. It was moved there and then it was moved again where it's at now.
I remember.
It's pictures, that's showing it moved down the road, going down Murfreesboro Road. There's pictures was taken there, but it was, about 2000, probably about 2001, 2002 is when it was moved, behind CDI building. And then about 2004, 2005, it was moved where it's at now. One thing about the log cabin, just about anybody around here that had any big interest in it, they've done passed on. And the people that are alive now don't know anything about it. And the young people and most of the middle-aged people wonder, what is it doing there? But most people who's had any interest in it at all, they done passed on,
But you can bet that if we get rid of it,
Oh, we get rid of it, everybody come out of the woodwork, said they,
all right, so I guess to vote on this, we need a motion to get David to start,
There's no motions here.
I know, I'm just being facetious.
We can definitely reach out. We
let's-
can
let's-
start that process tomorrow and see.
So how long we gonna wait on this?
Well, I mean, if we give David a couple weeks, he can get back with Bruce if we have any bites, and then that can be brought over to our, see here, this is gonna be the May meeting, this, upcoming workshop, so the June one, that should, David, do you believe that'll give you appropriate
Yeah,
amount
I
of time?
think we should be able to have some answers by then, one direction or the other.
personally, I like to see, if anybody gets it, I'd like to see Cannonsboro gets it. Because they already have one building there now that come from Laverne. It's the church, it's at Cannonsboro. It was a schoolhouse. When Cannonsboro moved it up there, they converted it into a church. They already got one building up there come from Laverne.
Okay, anything else with parks from anyone?
While
Thank you,
David's up
David.
there, we've got the senior center, about 4 items for that. Electrical and building repairs is for 7,000, storage container for 5,300, kitchen and bathroom upgrade for 8654, and closet door and interior paint at about 550.
David, we spoke about the closet door and interior painting. Is that something y'all can do out of the regular maintenance that, fund that we have for the senior center?
Yes, sir, we're gonna go ahead and remove that one off of there. And the electrical and building repairs, that's the thing we referenced at the planning retreat, building the concrete pad out back, kind of erecting a structure so they can keep their deep freezer in it, add some lights and some circuits out there. I think we can do that. I think our biggest expense there is going to be, the concrete itself. Now, we do have those properties off of Stones River Road that lumber has gotten so high, we may be able to steal some stuff off of that. I know there's a couple of lean-tos out there that have good metal on them. We can take that metal off there and rehab it to this project here. There's also some T111 siding that's in great shape. We can use it. So we're gonna try to salvage what we can and repurpose it for this project.
David, I'm gonna reach out, I'm friends with Jeff Hollingshead, Smyrna Ready Mix. See if, we might be able to get them involved. They might, donate a portion or all of that concrete. If you can let me know how much you're gonna need.
All right, yes, sir.
We can see if they wanna partner up and donate that to our seniors.
You're talking about doing underneath the,
Yeah, back there where their freezer is now, over in the overhang, when it got real cold during the winter, that drain tube got frozen up. So it kind of iced over on the inside. So we're gonna build a structure there and kind of insulate it so that doesn't happen again. Kind of keep that in a stable environment. I think they're gonna add some shelving units out there. We'll run lights out there. We may end up at some point, depending on how hot it gets during the summertime, put a small window unit in there just to keep it, you know, just to take care of those appliances that are out there.
so you want to close that in out there?
No, not the whole overhang.
Just where the
Where their deep
appliances
freeze is right now. I think we poured a concrete pad. We're just gonna add onto that concrete pad that's right there up against that back wall and
Right.
just enclose that section right there. So it'll actually be three-sided with a door so they can get in. So it's just gonna be like a little storage area for them right there where those freezers are.
Is that, you know, I've been meaning to ask you this, and I keep forgetting, is that one outlet that you all did out there and repaired and everything, is that thing strong enough to do these refrigerators and stuff?
Not if we add more. That's why we're gonna add more circuits. We're gonna pull new circuits, and we're gonna add probably at least 2 more circuits out there, plus some overhead lights. And then if we end up running a window air unit, you know, we're gonna try to plan on the front end. They have plenty of space in their panel that we can add some breakers in there.
When can we start talking about maybe asphalting underneath that thing? Would that be cheap, asphalt cheaper than concrete? Yeah, asphalt would be good.
Yeah, we can get with Garland and measure it out and kind of get a rough quote on that. I think we have a contract with an asphalt company.
Till when?
July. That'll come back before us again, though. Yeah.
Now, are we adding something else to the senior center? No, no paving?
No, it's just that removal of the, that $550 painting
Yeah,
and
I
door.
moved it down to current years, so that,
Yeah.
No, we haven't really talked about adding the asphalt. It was brought up probably about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So it's been mentioned by a couple people.
do I need to add it to this list? Mayor?
The asphalting, right now, I don't think we even have a plan for it.
Can we add it to the list as a, what do you call it, a measure, get an idea? What do you,
Talking about study,
the study? is
like
that-
usually that's what we would do for like a road project, we'd do a study. This, it's doing all the measurements to determine what that cost would
So
be.
can we add that to the list, though, is what I'm saying?
We can, but what dollar figure do you want tied to it?
I have to have a dollar figure
Well,
tonight?
that's what the capital is for, is to, it's like,
Marlon? No clue.
it is something where if they do the work, they, as far as they come up with those measurements, come up with costs, they can bring it back before the
So
board.
if the budget passes
Do a
like
budget
this, we
amendment.
can amend it?
Correct,
Okay.
because we'll be doing some of that, in the next few months with, some of the items that we're gonna bring forward into this fiscal year.
Okay.
Okay?
The senior center, is really growing. We got like 8 new people last week, and I think when this thing gets when everything kind of gets back to what you would call normal, we're gonna see a big rise in memberships. So these, we're hoping these containers want to be storage because we're out. The other one will be to do like a closet where seniors can actually go in that are in need and get things. And it won't be, hopefully it won't be just for the members. We want them to join and then they can do that. But, you know, it'd be nice if if you see somebody that needs it, you can just go over there and get something. They're trying to dig through piles.
Does anybody know, how many seniors from Laverne, actually Laverne goes there, and how many from Antioch and Smyrna and Mount Juliet?
I don't have that information with me. I do have that information at the office.
Can you call me about
Yes, sir.
that?
Yeah.
I've just wondered, I have had somebody ask me over a period of time, and I said, well, I'm not real sure.
Now, it may not be a current list through this past year due to COVID, but as of 2019, it was current.
Yeah.
Any other-
It's gone up since then. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. Any other questions for David? We'll move on to the library. They have requested $25,000 for interior painting next year. It's the only item the library has requested. Any questions on that?
That'll make our kiosk look good. Huh?
Do have one question on this. This may be kind of jumping the gun with items that we're pulling into next year, but with the carpet, I know we're gonna go ahead and move forward on purchasing the new carpet. Is that just purchasing it, or is that also including going ahead and getting it laid?
That includes getting it laid.
Okay. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Is that the squares too?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Moving on to economic development, we have about 3 items. One of these can be eliminated based on how the board decides to go. Tom has requested $10,000 for business retention and expansion. And also, we're looking at actually having a full-time person for the same business retention and expansion. So I don't know, that could be either one or both. I'm not sure what the board wants to do for this next year. And then Tom has requested $10,000 in advertising.
Thomas, do you want to come up here and talk to the board about how those 2 items are?
Spoke about at the retreat. Business retention expansion is probably one of the most neglected items of economic development, at least the way we're doing it now. Again, I gave you some figures, roughly 26,000 employees just within the city. I think I saw a figure today, 697 businesses between 10 employees and 99. So obviously we know we have some ones that are more than that, and we have some ones that are mom and pop and so on. It's so key. It's something we've not done. Right now we're doing very well with our businesses. If we had more land for industrial purposes, we could fill them up immediately. But again, there's so many other things. We just went through a year of COVID. We didn't have anyone going out there and letting them know what's available to them through federal or state programs. And ultimately what it can lead to is businesses closing. A flood, a tornado, COVID could shut down major businesses, and many of our residents work there. We could lose these jobs. We have not done anything. We have not had the ability to do it. It's never been anything that the city has done. As I said, it's a core component of any economic development agency, whether it's county-wise, so on. I asked for it. I put it, if you all remember, and you made fun of it. Excuse me, sir. A silhouette, because I said I wasn't looking for it this year. You all, each of you, I spoke to you and Vice Mayor. No, you said if it's so important, why aren't we doing it now? So again, if you all are, gracious enough to give us a week, we'll have plenty of work for this person to do as far as that goes. As far as my $10,000 request for BR&E, again, you have surveys, you have mailers, you have luncheons, you have so many different things that can happen with these businesses that, again, I think 10,000 it would probably be more than enough, but it's something that we don't have, we haven't budgeted in our current, or any budget that we've ever had. So again, that's what I ask regardless of anything, because we do need to start. The other 10,000 was asked for every year. Now this is going into my 5th year doing this. Something always comes up advertising wise, whether it's something we've done economic development wise and or it somehow gets placed into my budget. And then I have, well, let's take it out of this, let's take it out of that. Quite frankly, if we're gonna do it every year, I think we need to budget it, or it needs to go into Bruce's budget, or or to Ann's budget, or public relations, or so on. But if we're gonna do it every year, let's, I ask that you give me the funds to do it rather than me trying to pull from something else. I also asked for 10,000 for a supplementary website to economic development website that you will have. We've now moved. We didn't use all the funds this year. You all will vote on, I believe, this coming month, whether to use those funds right now. So, did I answer everyone's question as far as these go?
Anyone have any questions?
I'll just make some comments. Obviously, Tom's department is very important. I mean, I'm seeing it now from the business side, the retail side, and more importantly, the income side that's going to come with it. So, for me, it is a great investment, and I have a good return from it.
Yes. Anything else? Thank you, Tom.
Or Steve, you could kick that can down the road a little further. We can do it next year.
We've
It's up to
even
you.
dressed it up with some flowers here.
That last bunch handed that to us. We took care of it.
Thank you, Thomas.
The last 2 items on our list is for the water treatment plant to the dry polymer feed system at 51,000, and then the water department, some tough books for the water department, water maintenance department.
Last question, how many tough books are we getting for the money? You know the amount?
Yes, Alderman Coates, we're looking to purchase 13. I believe they come in at about $4,000 a piece, plus about $1,000 for installation per unit. A little high on the estimate, so it should be a little bit cheaper, but we wanted to go safe.
And the training, are you already trained up on this, or if you get these, you already have these?
Yes, sir, because there will be some limit training that we'll have to do. We can do that in-house. It's basically going to give the guys access to utility maps. Hopefully it'll help with our response time, if you will, kind of like the fire department says. We've considered this over the past couple of years, but it really came to light this past year with the snow event. We had a service line that was broken in a resident's home. We could not locate the meter because, as you're aware, we went to the drive-by system, so we don't physically go to these meters any longer. So it would help us to know prior to getting to the residence where that meter's located, let us get it cut off a little bit faster. As well as manhole that's overflowing. If a crew gets a call that a manhole's overflowing, we'll be able to look at that, or they will be able to look at that, know where they need to go prior to getting on scene to clean the line.
Man, I know exactly what you're talking about. 3 times,
Yes, sir, yep.
I couldn't find it.
Yeah, it can be difficult, even prior to going with the AMR system. I mean, grass grows, things get covered up, water valves get buried, et cetera, so. And it will allow us access with our utility mapper. He can update these maps as we find things, so we'll have access to updated maps versus going off paper copies and having those, made every year to reflect the changes that we find.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, sir.
So that should wrap up as far as the 21-22 capital, and then we should also have a list of items that were requested for the 21-22, but we are able to go ahead and purchase. And most of them are self-explanatory, but if you've got any questions on any of them specifically,
I do want to mention that the total for the general fund for the capital expense or additional operating expense comes to $3,166,086, and we have approximately $2,253,000 to work with.
Give me that amount again, if you don't mind, Phyllis.
$2,253,852 is what we have left in the general fund budget to work with. And this list, for just the general fund portion, is $3,166,086.
That's where the saying, trying to get a gallon of water and put in this one cup, it just don't fit.
So with that being said, generally what we do at this point is either every board member submits a list to the mayor or to Bruce or whomever.
Not to me, because we're gonna be voting on it.
Okay.
It would need to go to Bruce.
To prioritize, or if the board, you know, has any specifics that they want to take out immediately, we can do that now. But otherwise, we need to rank, the board needs to rank these expenses or these additional expenditures for operating and capital. The senior center can certainly fund the 3 items, and the water treatment plant and the water department can certainly fund their 2 items. But the general fund, we have approximately $2,253,852 to work with, and we have a total request of $3,166,086.
And Phyllis, if you don't mind me asking, whenever, with the items that will be proposed for the next board meeting with the budget amendment there, what will that take us to for how much money for this fiscal year that we're gonna have looking to go into the reserve funds?
I haven't really looked at those numbers lately, but the last time I looked at them, we were looking at probably somewhere between $5.5 million to $6 million. So if you subtract these items here, looks like maybe $300,000-400,000. Still think we'll be in the $5 million range.
Okay.
Of funds left over.
So Parks is asking for 1 full-time, 1 part-time, 1 full-time, 2 part-time maintenance, park and rec.
Correct.
In this particular instance, trying to juggle around, if Garland has a hard time getting, if we go with the part-time cleanup, if he has a hard time getting people, is there times, or is it just too much worrisome and stuff for, like, you know, call David and say, hey, man, I need one of your park guys come over here and help us today, pick up trash or whatever, and vice versa. Is that kind of stuff possible, or does it just get to be where it's?
Yeah, I mean, we all work for the same people, so I think all the departments are good about helping each other out. I think what you can't fill the positions, what you may run into in the busy season is there's too much work to go around and not enough people to cover.
Exactly.
And if he does pull from us, or we happen to pull from him, which is the occasion a lot of times, it's not what you're doing today, but it's what you're going to neglect. So you kind of got to pick and choose which task you do, because it's very easy to get, even if you're full staffed, majority of the time you're not full staffed because somebody's on vacation, somebody's sick, somebody's taking their wife to the doctor. So you got to take all that in consideration also. So the inmates did help us out, but then it's getting to, you know, because the parks several years ago, sometimes we were getting a three a day also. So that really helped us out. But when you're pulling away from that, then you're scrambling to figure out what you're not going to do today. So to answer your question is, yes, he can pull from us, and we pull from him. It's just something somewhere is not gonna get taken care of that day.
I think Phyllis said, you know, the board member did prioritize. I think, I like to see the department head prioritize, because they know more about their needs than us up here. If we're gonna put A through Z, the top of the line, I think the department heads should be the one to itemize, because they should know it better than we do, because they deal with it every day.
So basically, we need to take out, take out about 912,000, which is almost $1 million out.
I think another thing we need to look at, there may be a few of these items that we could move forward into this current fiscal year, maybe some of these vehicles, depending on what we're going to do, you know, with the leasing program, if we decide to go that route. You know, a lot of these are capital purchases, one-time purchases.
Bless you.
Compared to, you know, these different employee positions that are obviously ongoing. So if you separate the operating items from the capital items, I'd like to see what the difference is in the cost for that. And, you know, there's a possibility that we could take some of our surplus from this fiscal year, move it forward to next year to pay for some of these capital items instead of using just, and still be able to fund the operating changes that we need to make. So that's something I think we could look at.
I think we went through on all the vehicles, except for the inmate van, and that one's still up in the air. We did go,
Planning and codes.
The planning and codes, 2 vehicles, if we did a budget amendment, we could possibly bring those forward as well.
if there's a vehicle available.
Correct, if there's one on the lot.
That's-
Obviously, we can't order them, but yeah.
Bow City's not picky. Here, take a Kia.
we'll
One
just
one
get them
thing I was
on this
looking at
5-year.
too is the engineering design for the building space for police. If we do a bond and that goes in the bond, that's 200 that's coming off. The other question I would have is, can we take the 800 for the upgrade to the CAD, RMS and all that? Can that be out of the bond if we do a bond? Because if we do that, that's $1 million. Then we're back good.
Right.
And then you got 672,000 for 10 police vehicles. So some of these are kind of ifs right now, because we're not sure what we're going to do when it comes to vehicles.
What about, and again, I apologize for getting here late because I didn't hear the conversation, but other than police vehicles, is it feasible for us to even consider leasing other vehicles like Bows and?
Correct. It would be basically for all vehicles except for your dump trucks, your specialty vehicles, that sort of thing. All of your pickup trucks, your SUVs, your police vehicles are obviously candidates for that program.
So where does, Codes Department, truck for inspector, $35,000, where does that number go to if we lease it?
Well, I think that's part of the problem with this. We're referring to it as a lease, but I wouldn't use it as a lease, or I wouldn't call it a lease in my opinion. If you look, which I know you came in late and don't know the sheet number I'm talking about, but there's, basically what they're doing, they're saying 1.6 is what we're gonna save in a 10-year span. 731,000 of that is what our current assets are. So we're only saving 886,000 is part of it. I was concerned before, like what Bruce was saying, if we're gonna go to a true lease program, why buy a vehicle now? If we are going into what this is, I don't think buying a vehicle now hurts or not, because basically the only thing you're gonna do is if we go ahead and buy the 2 vehicles that we're talking about, $70,000, it'll go over here to our existing assets that we have that we save, basically, in the future. It's not a true lease, is the best way to put it.
I got you.
It's more of a financing over a certain amount of time, depending on what that quote-unquote lease period is.
Bruce, I have a question. On the equity leased, was that based on the true equity or our portion of the equity?
That is the savings we would get when we turn the vehicles back in.
But is that their half are they?
That's what they sell.
That's what they sell, and we get the
Yep.
proceeds back from that.
We don't get all the proceeds.
Yes,
They
we
get
do.
half of
Yeah,
it.
we do.
That's what they said earlier. We get all the proceeds for that.
Basically,
I
they
thought she
said they,
said that one time, the very first meeting, I thought she said we split the proceeds, 50/50.
I don't remember that.
Basically, what you're
We can
doing is
find
you're,
out.
you're getting the gains for, they really want the trucks. So if we purchase a truck, they want us to turn it around in a year. And if you look at it, I mean, that's common. You've got several contractors out there that are willing to buy a service truck like that tomorrow, and they're lined up. So you get the money based on the savings from a government contract. You purchase at a lower value, you turn around, they're gonna sell it within a year. It's something we don't do right now, but if you wanted to do it yourself and have a fleet person that controls that, which is gonna be a nightmare, you basically, that's what they're doing. That's where the savings come from, because if you go, because the question was asked earlier about, I think it was year 5, or 25 to 26, that's truly what you're really saving on a yearly basis, other than what we're gaining from our current assets we already own.
Kyle, was that you volunteering for the fleet manager position?
No, I wasn't doing that.
Okay, so we've had a couple requests, whether it be prioritizing them for the board members, for the staff members, for separating out one-time purchases versus items that'll be recurring. Most of this, we can identify single purchases versus reoccurring just by looking at it. I would say if you want, as far as the board members need to put some kind of prioritization list of what items you're looking for and get that to Bruce. If you want to get with the individual directors and speak with them, they can let you know what their priorities are. But we need to get that and get it over to Bruce.
Quickly.
Quickly, yes. Because
What,
we
noon
have,
tomorrow?
we have a budget, well, we have a regular workshop Thursday night. And first reading of the budget is scheduled for next Tuesday, so we'll have to have that ordinance written, not necessarily by Thursday, but, we need to have a good idea what direction we're moving by Thursday, so we can have the ordinance ready by Tuesday next week.
So would you say end of day Tuesday or noon Wednesday to get you that list?
Noon Wednesday would be great.
I think Wednesday, because that way we'd be able to compile that list and have it ready for the workshop Thursday. And
Okay.
then after we discuss it more Thursday night, then we could try to have the draft budget ordinance ready for next Tuesday.
Okay.
Do y'all think by emailing us and giving your priority and then let us pick from that is better than trying to meet, because I ain't got time to meet with every one of you.
I think mine will be easy.
Same here.
Mayor, if I may, let me take this list and split it between capital versus operating. And then I can send this out to the department heads and let them rank both their operating expenses and their capital expenses. And then once I get that back from the department heads, I can send it to all of the council members so you can see that and decide what your rankings would be for priorities. How would that work?
That's
Didn't we do
that's
this
fair enough.
last year?
We do this every year.
I mean, having them, yeah. I like
Okay.
that idea.
Bruce, that's fair enough.
Yeah, if we can get electronic format, for me, it'd be more helpful just to, on the Excel spreadsheet, just to run it through.
Okay.
I will get it out as soon as I can tomorrow morning.
Okay. That takes care of capital items.
The only other thing that I would like to mention tonight is, originally we had built into the revenues, the rebuild and recovery grant of $811,525. We still kind of sort of think we're going to get that money, but there's been lots of notifications recently about delaying that money because of the other grant,
The American Recoverers.
American Recovery Grant. Now the governor has decided he's not sure if we should get this grant or get the other grant or get both grants. And there's also been discussion of it probably won't happen July 1st either way, that it might be January 1st before we get the 811. So we took it completely out. If we do happen to get it back, we'll rejoin, have another discussion about that. There are some specific categories that you can purchase items from, and then we'll just do a budget amendment as needed for that.
And one of the things that the governor's office is looking at with this, they're proposing in their current budget to basically kick this grant from July to January of '22. And what's being said is that this is to make sure that there's no overlap or duplication with the American Recovery Act. I've reached out personally to our entire delegation to the state, just expressing our views that we should stick with the original July date. Mind you, that's 4 votes out of the entire state, both Senate and House of Representatives. So hopefully other municipalities are doing the same thing. I know TML is urging them to, but at this point, it's a wait and see. Okay, I think the next item that we've got is some information on bonding, which I think Bruce is going to lead us through.
Well, first of all, in your documents there in front of you, I've taken the priorities that were sent to me from all of you. Thank you for sending those. As far as the capital projects that you all would like to see, so that information is there in front of you. The next page is a estimate for the $35 million bond issue that we discussed last week. Again, if you look at the far right-hand column, you can see the dollar amounts for what that bond issue would cost the city over and above what we currently pay for our existing debt service level. And as you can see, that ranges anywhere from 700 to 900, just depending on what years and what bonds are coming off of us. There was some question as to what items could be refunded, and our consultant did send that information over today. I did not print that out, but I will send that to you. There is some savings, both on the general fund side and on the water sewer side, if we basically refinance some of those bond issues. It's not a tremendous savings, but obviously every little bit helps. So it is a possibility that we could roll those into this bond issue as well. The last document there, that's about 6 pages long, is another funding mechanism that we might be able to use. This is the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund. And again, if you go to the third page in that document, it shows what those costs would be for $35 million. We have not reviewed this in depth yet to see if this is better or worse than a traditional bond issue, but we will certainly be evaluating this as well. And that's really all that I've got as far as documentation left over from last week and when it comes to the capital projects.
Any questions or conversation? I know we've not really had a chance to read through any of the TML bond fund information, but that's something that we can get into more conversation with at the upcoming workshop as well.
Yeah, I'd like some more time to review it, just to
Yeah.
understand it some more.
Bruce, can we set up for the agenda some discussion time at the workshop on the bond?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'll put it on the agenda.
So this gives everyone an opportunity to read through it and look through all the numbers, as well as the various priorities that each board member listed, which personally, I want to thank everybody for getting that back to Bruce. I know over the years we've struggled with that, but this helps to create a clearer picture as to what this board wants to do to get this city moving further forward. Does anyone have anything else? Okay, well then, we have the workshop on Thursday, and we will have some information going out to everybody on the capital projects. Please remember, get that back to everybody. Get that back over to Bruce by noon on Wednesday. Thank you. Call this meeting adjourned.